Hey, happy Monday, everybody. Hope everybody having a good week. Hey, listen up. Before we jump into everything, I just want to say congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for their victory over the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday in the Super Bowl. I did not watch it. I was in bed sleeping, but I heard it was not a very good game, and we can get into that and talk about that a little bit later. Uh, but as you notice, we got Bruce Willis here. He used to be in the Marine Corps. I can't
Dave
say
Willis.
former Marine because I got in trouble for that, so I have to do some corrections. So as a warrant officer, we don't, meant to making mistakes that often. But hey, I apologize for that. As my producer Chris, who's also a Marine, just gave me a 5 minute, bashing about it. But that's all okay. But before we jump into everything, you see the QR code in the upper left hand corner for Reads Across America. It's a great program to be part of. You can scan that with your phone and to ensure that the wreaths are placed, memorialize the veterans who've passed on during the holiday season. Super proud to be a part of that. Along with that, as you know, Reads Across America Radio replays my podcast at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. Super easy to find. Just download the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Odyssey app, and search for Reads Across America Radio for not only my great programming, but also Bruce has also his podcast on Reads Across America called Homefront. And so that's at Thursday at 11 p.m. So you can also catch his podcast on that program too also. So super proud and so happy that he's here with us. With that, you got 10th Mountain up in the top right hand corner. As you know, the great bourbon whiskey company. I wish I could get it shipped over here to Italy, but I can't. But anytime somebody comes and visits me from the States, I always make sure the suitcase has a bottle or two in there. And not only for me, but also for my Italian friends. And you got Veterans to Mortgage there in the lower left-hand corner. Interest rates and mortgages are going to come down. So it'd be a great time to look at maybe refinance your house or maybe building that deck or the outside sitting area. So it might be a good time to get educated on that. So you might want to go ahead and scan that and go ahead and look at that. And hey, you know what? You might want to be like me and maybe you want to move out, go somewhere different. You got PCS to Paradise down there in the lower right. You can scan that and they can help you find your dream place to live. Here in Italy, my wife and I have been looking at different villas because we're thinking about buying a place here in Italy and either retire here and stay or just have a vacation home. So we've been looking at different villas and castles and things like that. And so that's really exciting about that. Now, with all that, I'm going to take a drink of water and pass it over to Lynn. And Lynn, give us an update what's been going on you, and then we'll jump into David, our guest.
All right, can you guys hear me? Fine.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, so welcome, David. Glad to have you here. I've been good. I mean, this past weekend was really cool. Chill weekend with the family. As you know, as a federal government worker, I've been like glued to the TV and glued to the news to see what is going on and what's new. Um,
Many
but
TikTok videos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And on my TikTok videos, I'm talking about the federals, like from my point of view type thing, and not
Yeah.
necessarily political, but like,
Well,
and
it
like
gives
my
good
job
information
falls
to
into
people
that
too.
spectrum. So, our deferred resignation program got extended again
Mm-hmm.
today. So the federal judge heard it, and they are again extending it today. And I didn't really catch what date, but they're gonna go over all that stuff. So yeah, I've just been at the edge of my seat. But as far as that goes, oh, and then I think this past weekend was Irreverent Warriors just had a hike in Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was,
Yeah,
yeah.
in Puerto Rico. So and then coming up we have the Fort Lauderdale hike and then Waikiki. So Fort Lauderdale is this Saturday, after Valentine's Day, and
Mm.
then Waikiki is on February 22nd.
Nice. I reached out to the Trista Italy folks, but they said they wasn't doing one this year. So I don't know if there's going to be one
Yeah.
in Italy or not. So
Some hikes do every other year, especially like when it's
yeah.
overseas, because it's just a lot of logistics that happens behind the scenes. So,
Yes, and
mhm.
he did a really great job. It was a great, wonderful hike. But yeah, the logistics, and not only just to set the hike up here in Italy where they had it, but just the people flying in and the issues people had, coming in on planes because a lot of people were delayed. There was a lot of stuff going on at that time, and a lot of people just, it wasn't an easy trip coming and going home. So. But hey, you know what? It's a great program. You can look out for Reverend Warriors. You can search for them and look for their hikes. And if you're a veteran, go on it. You're going to love it. It's a great time. And you know what? You make fun of each other. You laugh, you joke, you have a good time, and you'll make lifetime friends with that. And Lee can attest to that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys, again, I just want to reiterate our mission, which has a lot to do with mental health. So, Irreverent Warriors' mission is we bring veterans together using humor and camaraderie to improve mental health and prevent veteran suicide. So, we're actively preventing veteran suicide. It is a near and dear mission to most of us, right? And that have served, because we all know someone that's unfortunately part of the 22, or maybe one of us or some of us have been on that verge. So, it's very important, and we're actively preventing it. We're not spreading awareness, because a lot of people, it's already, people are aware about it. What we're doing is preventing it, and it's a great mission.
It's an awesome mission. But hey, with that, David, why don't you tell our guests a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Homefront Sit Rep, and what you used to do in the Marines. I heard that you was in infantry. I was aviation for 34 years in the Army, and so we used to fly over and say, "Man, I bet it sucks down there."
Yeah, being infantry does suck. My name's David Willis. I'm originally from Bardstown, Kentucky, where bourbon is made. So I'm a bourbon drinker. I love my bourbon. Of course, I don't drink as much as I used to, but I definitely love my bourbon.
Well, I will take any shipments of bourbon to Italy.
Nice.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. There you go. So graduated high school in 97, joined the Marine Corps right after that. Literally, June, I was in boot camp, June 4th, 97. I was in boot camp standing on those yellow footprints at Paris Island. No Hollywood Marine. I'm a East Coast Marine. So I went through boot camp, then School of Infantry, then got sent to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, Golf Company. Did some deployments there with those guys, and then later on, I was not 4th Battalion in boot camp. No. But yeah. So when I was with 2A, we went to a deployment to Haiti, Port-au-Prince, Haiti. We were doing a humanitarian mission down in Haiti, and we had 2 bases that we were guarding. This was in 98, I believe it was, early 98. And down there, we were not allowed to interfere with local customs. And we had our guard posts that were set up, and the main post was where the main road, or the main gate was where the main road was. And we'd be up on post, and there would be a crowd of people in front of the gate. And then in the back of it was men with AK-47s, and they were shooting over top of our tower. And, first time being there, we were like, what do we do? And they're like, well, you can't do anything unless they're shooting at you directly and they're hitting your post, or they're hitting you. Then you could fire back. Wow. So, that was pretty scary. And then when we went out in town on the QRF, we strolled through the marketplace, which is where everything happened there in Port-au-Prince. The smell, like the first time I went through there, the smell was so ungodly that we were trying to roll the windows up in the Humvee to keep the smell from coming into the Humvee. Well, that didn't help. It was very horrible. And then some of the things as a fresh 18-year-old, first time out of Kentucky, some of the sights that we saw, and I talk about it on my podcast because I seen some stuff that an 18-year-old probably should have never seen. Like for example, there was a couple guys laying on the street with tires wrapped around them that were burning, and they were screaming their heads off. Well, we couldn't do anything. Then I seen people with comm wire wrapped around their neck being drugged by a vehicle. Couldn't interfere. And then they come to the front gate with their hand cut off and blood just like squirting everywhere.
Spewing out.
Yeah. And it's like, sorry, bro, we can't help you. We're there to help them, but we were told we couldn't interfere. So that has always weighed on me since then. It's one of the things that I talk to my therapist about when it comes to my mental health, because, waking up at 2:00 in the morning, sweating from head to toe. And my wife's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, if only I could tell you, it's just one of those things you just don't tell somebody you love the most in the world, you want to protect them from that. So you don't tell them that. So you bottle it, compartmentalize it, however you want to say it. You just hold it down. You don't tell people that you care about, hey, this is some of the stuff that I've seen. So needless to say, we did more deployments after that. We did a joint exercise in Greece with a NATO exercise, and there was a lot of other countries there, and got to see how other countries' military worked. We did a deployment to Okinawa with 2 months in South Korea. We got to train with the ROK Marines. And then I did a med float. I switched from 2nd Battalion 8th Marines to 1-8 Bravo Company and did a med float with them, and got to see, a lot more kind of where you're at. We were in, the med. We went to Toronto and Brindisi, Italy. Got to go to Malta. We got to go to Tunisia, Africa, and several of those ports there. And I tell my wife all the time that I want to go back to Malta, which is a little island off the coast of Italy. It's the soccer ball on the boot there. And I tell my wife, I said, that's if we ever do a med float, that's one place we have to go.
I'm here. My wife still likes to do the Navy. She picked up captain a year ago, and then we're stationed here in Napoli, in Naples, at this port.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't get to pull into Naples because there was a bombing there in the port when we were supposed to pull in. So that's why we had to go on the backside of the boot to where Toronto and Brindisi was.
What year was that?
So that would have been 2000.
Okay, so that's when the mafia. I forget the name of the mafia boss, but he was bombing people. I think he killed a judge or something around that time. He blew this car up or something. It was a big mafia war going on with the police.
They wouldn't let us. They wouldn't let us pull in the port. We were supposed to, but they wouldn't let us. So we had to go to the back side of the boot. And so I got out in 2001 before 9/11 happened. I got out in August, and then 9/11 happened. I got involuntary recalled. It was the first time the IRR, the Individual Ready Reserves, was recalled ever in the Marine Corps history. And then so I got sent back to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for combat refresher training. And then we deployed from there. And then I got out in 2003, right at 2003, at the end of 2003, 2004. So I've been out since 2004. Like most veterans, when you get out of the military, you lose that sense of purpose, that sense of camaraderie.
Yeah.
So I had to find something to keep my mind from wandering, because it wandered quite a bit. So luckily I got a job right away. But I didn't fit in. Like I just felt like I didn't fit in anywhere there within the job. And just going through the motion. So I had to find something else. So my girlfriend at the time, my current wife now, said, how about volunteering? So I volunteered at a bunch of different veteran service organizations and found my purpose. Again, my purpose was giving back to brothers and sisters that have fallen on hard times. Whether it's drugs or whatever, that was my mission now, is to help them. And I've been doing that since 2004. And in 2020, I was on the board of a veteran nonprofit. And the nonprofit, the founder, he was a narcissistic prick. It was all about him. It took me a little while to find that out, that he was a narcissistic prick and it was all about him. It took me a little while to figure that out. So I resigned in 2020, and I was like, what am I going to do now? Because I was still volunteering at some of the local nonprofits, but COVID happened. Nobody was really doing anything at that time. So I was like, man, what am I going to do? And then I said, I'm going to start a podcast. So I bought the microphones, the cameras, the computer. I bought everything, right? got it set up down here in the bunker, which I didn't have all this stuff that I have now, but I did have the flag. So I put the flag back here, and it was just a flag in the background. I was like, all right, we're going to start a podcast. And then we didn't start right away. It was like, man. So I procrastinated like most veterans do. I procrastinated. And in 2023, January, well, into 2022, beginning of 2023, my wife is like, hey, you need to do something or we're getting a divorce. Because my PTS had got so bad, my anger issue was really bad. I was quick to anger. Like literally, my kids or my wife would say something, and I would just snap, and it was just like not good for everybody. And I was like, okay, let's get started on the podcast. So I came down here and I started looking at all the veteran podcasters at that time, and what I saw was everybody was bringing veterans onto their show and letting the veterans tell their story. Well, what I noticed, nobody was really highlighting veteran service organizations from around the country, the mom and pop ones, the ones that actually still care about the veteran. So that's what I was like, that's going to be our niche right there. That's what we're going to focus on. And I reached out to some of the local ones that I knew here in Kentucky. And I was like, hey, I'm starting this podcast. I want to bring you guys on and highlight you guys. And they're like, oh, cool. That's awesome. Let's do it. So we started doing audio podcasts, recording on Sunday nights. And then we would release on Tuesday at noon. I just picked a random day, random time. I was like, let's do Tuesdays at noon. So that, man, it caught really quickly. Like it grew exponentially. And I wasn't even expecting it to grow as fast as it did. And it just kept growing. And I got in touch with other veteran podcasters, Rich LaMonica from the Misfit Nation, one of my closest friends. He's like, hey, bro, I know you do audio, but how about doing video too? And I was like, well, tell me all about it, because he was doing video. So he introduced me to StreamYard. I started doing the free version of StreamYard. And I was like, man, this is awesome. I like how this is all laid out. It's pretty easy to use. So I sweet talked the wife and letting me pay for the next version up. And so we started doing video. And I had a co-host who was a Army veteran / Coast Guard veteran that when me and her were introduced, she was homeless at the time I met her. She was couch surfing and living in her car. The wife and I and a few other friends helped get her into an apartment and help her get back on her feet. And I was like, all right, I'm going to bring you in to have the female perspective that I don't have. And so, man, we just clicked. Like me and her were like, she was my sister.
That's how I came into the podcast too, because we started Veteran Trash Talk around COVID time as well. So all our founders, they all serve together. They're all 11 Bravo, and they started the podcast because during COVID, we had nobody to talk to, and so we needed that outlet. And so they started doing like Skype or FaceTime sessions, and then they're like, "Oh, we're really funny. We should like record this." So they started recording it, and then turned it into a podcast. And then so I was wondering if you ever heard of us, Veteran Trash Talk, because we actually also bring in veteran-owned businesses as well and highlight those mom and pop shops, those who actually care about veterans, not like the big corporate. I mean, like we'll have big corporate people also, no offense to them, but yeah, we do. We highlight them too. And then they brought me on board because they needed the female perspective.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think I might have heard of Veteran Trash Talk. I've looked at so many different podcasts over the years.
Oh yeah, there's so many now.
It's just like, holy cow. And so Megan and I, we started the podcast. It was my brainchild. I brought her on board, and it took off. Like people were like, man, I love what you're doing. I love the layout of things. Now, the first few episodes, we had like 20 questions. Like it was a scripted kind of sort of thing. And I was like, man, this ain't working. Yeah. Let's change it over to be more conversational based. And that's when it really took off. And started.
It's easier that way. It's not as robotic.
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
and we started doing lives too, which
Mhm.
if you know anything about podcast producing and you're doing recorded episodes and you got to go in and do all the edits to cut out the ums and the uhs and the
Right.
short breaks in conversation, the dull moments, and it when I started doing the live and started not focusing on the edit portion of it. That helped too, because it is like, man, it just flows much easier. Uh, and then we started doing that, and then we got hooked up with Heroes Media Group, which is Adam Bird. He's amazing. If you haven't checked out Heroes Media Group, go check out heroesmediagroup.com. Adam's awesome. He's got a nice network. He's doing podcast movements and stuff like this. He's one of the OG podcasters when it comes to veterans. He does amazing things, and he's got all kinds of things in the works. And he's like, man, I love what you're doing. I want you to come to HMG, be part of HMG. So we joined HMG, was our first, not sponsor, but technically they are a sponsor, kind of, sort of. Like, I pay them, but they still sponsor Homefront Sit Rep. So, but I still use their StreamYard. I still use like Spotify for their stuff that I'm using right now. So I guess in a sense, I'm paying him to use his StreamYard and his stuff, but he's still sponsoring because he highlights our podcast. We're on his website and stuff like that. And my thing is with the podcast, I want to highlight the veteran service organizations out there, the mom and pops that still care about veterans, like Montana Warriors on the Water, Fallen Outdoors, or Warriors Next Adventure, or Project Zero, or Mended Sparrow, or Camp Hero Kentucky, or Lady Vets Connect in Winchester, Kentucky. All these different mom and pops that are still focused on the veteran and not the number. And if you've been involved with veteran service organizations, you know what I mean by when I say the number, because when they get so large, every veteran's now a number, and that's all they care about. So if one veteran drops off, they're like, well, we need two to replace that one veteran. It's like, those are the ones that I don't want to have on the show, because I want the ones that still care, and I want to be able to highlight the ones that still care about the veteran. And I know a nonprofit takes money to run, but when that's the only thing that you're focused on is, hey, where's my money coming to do these events and stuff? That's wrong.
That's when, like, I lose, like, lackluster, like, I lose all interest when a nonprofit's like, oh, well, we need to raise money, we need money for this, we need money for that. Well, what about your mission? Like, mission should always come first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
when you just focus on the numbers, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not. And if I go to an organization, let's say they do crocheting, right? Crocheting for veterans, and I go there, I try it out, and I'm like, man, I love what you're doing, but it's not working for me. And I go to one of the board members or the founder and say, hey, man, I love what you're doing, but this is not working for me. Those people are supposed to say, hey, what do you like doing? And I'm like, and I sit back and I'm like, well, I like race car driving. They could say, all right, well, I know Ed McLean with Warriors to Racers. They have an all veteran race team. Let me get you hooked up with those guys. And they should call them right then and there and call them, say, hey, Ed, I got this veteran, Mr. Willis here. Let me get you talking to him so we can get him involved in your organization. Working together. And I don't know how many times I've said this over the last 2 years. We have to work together to end the 22. And I'm putting 22 in quotations because everybody knows that number's a lot larger than what they say it is.
Yeah.
For us to end the 22, we all have to come together and work. And I guess it's been the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been a sudden shift where all these veteran service organizations are finally realizing that they have to work together to end the 22. And I don't know if it's because of all of us little people, with the TikTok and the podcast that we got, preaching, working together, and coming together as a community to help to end the 22. But I guess it's been the last year and a half, 2 years that shift has come around, and I love it because that means everybody's working together and have a common mission. So that's. And then, on Homefront Sit Rep, we bring in veteran singers, veteran comedians, authors, business owners. We had 4 Branches Bourbon on last night, which is an amazing story. Their tagline, if you go to their website, it's Sip to Remember. A lot of people drink to forget, but they're like, no, we want to sip to remember the fallen, the ones that didn't come home. So we want to sip to remember. That's cool. I was like, man, that's powerful right there. A sip to remember. So
tell us about your experience, like connecting with other veterans, like on new types of platforms like social media, like TikTok. What's your experience with that?
So TikTok is the newest platform that I joined, and I joined it sometime last year. And when I first told people I was going to test the waters on TikTok, they were like, man, don't do it. You'll get demonized. And I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. They're like, if you got an American flag behind you or you talk a military, they're just going to berate you and demonize you. Well, I can honestly say, I've had great interactions with every community that I've I've entered. Vet Nation Cards is one that that's where I met Tita.
That's where we met.
Yeah. Through Vet Nation Cards, and every morning at 7:00 he's on there, and he's got people in his chat, and he brings people up and let them tell their story right there, and it's a great community. I met Lita, the Black Dog community with Sam. I've met Wise Man Rivers. So many people, and it really is a community that cares, and that's the good thing about social media. Especially TikTok, because no matter where they're at, you can reach out and talk to them any time of the day.
Oh yeah.
I've met a British Army veteran. He goes by Southie on TikTok. I go into his lives, and he's talking, and then we get talking in DM, and hearing his story, what he goes through. And it's like, bro, he wants to find some holistic breathing techniques. Well, we had Tim Thomas, who's an Australian Special Forces that lives in Australia. I had him on a show, and he created breath work in bed, which is a breathing exercise that you do in the morning when you first wake up, and you do it at the evening right before you go to bed. And I will tell you, I've been doing it for the last month, and it has helped my sleep because I'm an insomniac. I do not like to sleep. I like to stay up until my body says, all right, you're going to sleep. And then I'm back up in like 2 or 3 hours. But doing his breathing exercises has helped. Now, I still don't sleep for a full 8 hours, but when I do sleep, I'm getting really, really good sleep. And it has helped with, easing the anger too, because I guess I'm getting a little bit more sleep. My wife has noticed a difference too as well. So
yeah, that's one thing important, is of course, I'm a suicide survivor and obviously PTSD, but sleep is so important, and people don't understand how important sleep is. I'm like you. I don't, I'll go to bed at 3 a.m. I'll go to bed at 2 a.m. It varies, because I just go to bed when I'm tired. And now what I've learned and I use is a mental health app out there. And I don't know if you heard about it, and I talk about it a lot on my show, called Ear Kick. And it's probably the best mental health app I've ever come around. It's free to download. I encourage all veterans to use it because they have so many different programs on there. And what's nice about it's for children too. It's for children, adults, veterans, for anybody. And what's nice is the AI on it. It's really amazing. And, it just allows you they have a little panda on there, and you can interact with the panda. You can have conversations like we are now. What's nice about that is sometimes you just want to get things off your chest, right? And one of the things I have a hard time with going with therapy is, as a suicide survivor, they want to talk about my suicide. But that is a past in my life. I will never go down that road again. I know what that looks like, and I stop myself. but I have to spend 6 months talking about something that has nothing to do with why I'm in the office
Right.
today. And so I look for alternative ways, for therapy with life coaches, with talking with, licensed clinical social workers, with Veterans Trash Talk, you reach out to like-minded veterans, like we do with our podcast. It's a lot of times you just want to get something off your chest. And it's so important to do that for your mental health, because what does that do? Well, that brings your anxiety level down, that brings your cortisol levels down, that allows you to sleep more, that allows you to be more focused. It's kind of silly, but I talk about this, is drinking is a huge problem. And I went to a doctor a couple years ago, and I say this because I think it's kind of important, is, he was asking me about drinking. We all lie to the doctor, right? When you're going through a physical and they say, well, how much do you drink? I have 1 or 2 drinks. Well, that's probably after six before then, right? But he was an old doctor, and he was an old veteran, and he looked at me and he said, how about just having 1 less drink? So if you drink 4, how about just having 3? It's like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. And then the next year when I went and saw him, he said the same thing, but he said, how about just having 1 less drink? And so then you're down to 2, and then you don't even think about it anymore. And I just thought, for a lot of people, when you're going through a lot of stuff, David, and you can attest to this, is if you set your goals too high, you're setting yourself up for failure. And it's so important to make little goals, just like what you were talking about with your sleeping and your breathing exercises. That's a little change that has had a profound effect on your life. And I think a lot of times with people, whether you're in the military, not in the military, but you're recovering from something, trauma, PTSD, whatever it was that you're dealing with, setting little goals will help you make the big goal.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people forget that. And I think it's so very important, and one thing you talk about in bringing these different veteran organizations together, especially the smaller ones, is, they're in tune what's going on in their area, with their Kentucky, with their counties, with the people there. And, a lot of veterans don't know that because there's just so many out there. And how do you know? And just, with your podcast, it's really great to know that you are giving those people a voice, because, a lot of them don't know about podcasts. Some of them don't, do so much on social media. They don't understand the power of it. Social media gets a bad rep sometimes, but social media can be very, very good. And, I know through Veterans Trash Talk Facebook page, we've saved many of veterans just because there's somebody on there 24/7.
Yeah.
And if you get on there and message somebody that you're messed up in the head, somebody's going to reach out to you, and they can attest to that. It's happened many times.
Yeah, we got the Facebook group for Homefront and Sit Rep. We had a private group that we had, and a veteran was on there, and he was posting some crazy stuff. He was at a bar, he was drinking, and he was posting some crazy talk. And we finally located where he was at. And we had a veteran there within 5 minutes. The veteran picked him up, took him home to his home, stayed with him all night, and then the next morning took him to the hospital to get him help. Because, I mean, some of the stuff that he was posting was like, he definitely was asking for help. You could tell, but he wasn't coming out and saying he wanted help. But
it's hard, right? It's hard.
They always have the subliminal messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what I love, is, building a community that looks out for each other. I mean, that's something that we all need to do, is we need to look out for our brothers and our sisters, our left and our right. And then Chaz from FSB Initiative, he goes, man, you know how everybody says, we got your 6. He said, I changed it up. He said, man, I want everybody to know that I got their 360.
I remember you guys talking about that on TikTok.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's so profound, because, we always say we got your 6. But when you say you got our 360, that means you got us covered all the way around.
Front, back, side to side.
Yeah.
I know all of that. So the reason why I love joining y'all in the morning, or Vet Nations in the morning, it's almost like you guys were talking about therapy. So it's almost like a therapy session, and just listening to other veterans, and then maybe being able to talk my story, or maybe there's not enough time. It still re-energizes me, and it gives me purpose to go on through the day. Like, hey, I'm not alone. I know everyone else is going through their thing, something similar, or maybe I could relate. And there's so many people that I resonate with, that I hear their stories. And so, Cliff, if you haven't seen it, it's like a grid formation, and there's 9 people.
It's on. It's afternoon for me, but
yeah. So then
you
like
sent me the link and I got onto it for a while.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he either invites you on or you can
Request.
request to get on. I never request, but I always get invited on anyway.
Yeah.
And I think the importance in that is just finding your community and finding like your footing and where you belong, right? So like not only finding your purpose, but finding your people and finding your tribe.
Yeah.
So we all know like I have Veteran Trash Talk. I love y'all forever. Started off with y'all. Then I branched off with Irreverent Warriors. And Irreverent Warriors merged with that big company, Grunt Style. So I've kind of like took a step back, but I'm kind of getting reeled back in. So what helped me get reeled back in into veteran community is just going on TikTok after the fact that we were supposed to have it taken away. So
Yeah.
after the fact we were supposed to have it taken away, it kind of re-energized me like, oh, let me get on TikTok. And that's where I found all these veterans. And so my FYP just turned into like vet talk.
Yeah. So there, speaking of people from TikTok, Sam from Black Dog Community just commented there in chat.
Yeah.
What's up,
Oh.
Sam? How are you, brother?
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, thanks for joining in too. Ahoy.
Yeah. And everyone's absolutely amazing and super welcoming. And I think that's the truth for any veteran community that you go in. If you go with VTT, if you go with Irreverent Warriors, you go on TikTok. I think that's true. People are welcoming you with open arms. Not like back then when we first got out in like maybe early 2000s or even in the 10s, it was kind of like, oh, we're doing this first and we're a big brand, you know? And so like as to your point, what you were saying, Willis, you know, all of the smaller creators and smaller brands are getting together saying we need to be a community and we need to do this together.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's working. Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, you know, being a partner with Sam with Black Dog Community and doing the 22 pie challenge. That's what I'm going to call it. The 22 pie challenge. He challenged me and another veteran to get a pie in our face. And then I'm challenged.
Eating the pies.
You could do like a
like, wow, 22 pies.
Yeah.
That was your video we were watching the other day.
No, that was Gunny's.
Oh, okay. That
was my co-host.
A great video.
So I had my daughter do mine upstairs in my kitchen, and my wife is very particular about the house. So I told my daughter, I said, look, we're going to do this pie challenge, but you can't splatter it everywhere. I said, just get daddy in the face. So she came up and she did it in like slow-mo. So I'm watching the pies that's coming to my face. And then I challenged Gunny Deeds, which is my co-host, so Gunny and I met in boot camp. Then we served together. We went to School of Infantry together. Then we served together with 2-8. So his story, his beginning story, and my beginning stories are very, very similar because he was my battle buddy in boot camp. And then here it is 20 plus years later, he's my battle buddy again. His story, if y'all want a story of resilience, he is that guy. He got blown up twice by two different IEDs. And he's out giving back to the veteran community, you know, even though he's 49 surgeries deep with everything that's gone on with him, he's still got more surgeries to go. He's still giving back. You know, they forced him out. He was 14 years in the Corps and they're like, bro, you got to go. So and he didn't want to go, but they forced him out. He now just recently Soldiers of Sidelines with Harrison Burdenstein, who was an NFL coach that gave up his NFL career to give back to veterans, created Soldiers of Sidelines. Gunny Deeds just recently got January Soldier Coach of the Month, which is awesome because he does Team Fast Tracks, which is part of Blue Skies for the Good Guys and Gals, which are skydivers. They skydive into stadiums with the American flag and POW and honor and remember flag. So Gunny's one of the coaches on the ground because he can't skydive anymore because of all the shrapnel and stuff. But he's still down on the ground coaching, you know, his team and making sure the wind is right and make sure that nobody's going to get hurt. So he's got a heck of a story. If y'all want to interview him, I can get you connected with him. I know him.
Yeah, please do.
I know him pretty well. And, you know, it just building this community and talking about my trauma and I'll tell this for anybody out there. I can go to my therapist and I can tell him, everything that's gone on with me in the military. And he's like, well, let's peel back that layer a little bit more. What happened before the military? And I didn't grow up in a stable home. Like, my mom was a single mom, 4 kids. My brother passed away in 94. I was abused by my mama's boyfriend at the time. And just a bunch of stuff that went on. And they say a lot of veterans have the same backstory, that where they didn't come from a stable home. And that's why they joined the military, to have that stability. And I guess they're right, because a lot of veterans I talked to have said, yeah, I got something similar to that. So going to a therapist, it helps, but yet finding our community on TikTok, Facebook, wherever, and talking about my story, it gets easier and easier. It doesn't eliminate, but it does help. It does help minimize the night terrors and the demons and the anger issues and stuff like it. Because the more I talk about it, the more I open up. So it
better helps you deal with your triggers, right?
Yes.
So the more you talk about it, when you do have those triggers, no matter what it is, smell, sound, look, temperature of the day, whatever it is your trigger is, and it could be just not one thing, many things. The more you talk about it, especially when those triggers happen, you're able to, like I said earlier on, you get that off your chest. You'll be able to deal with those triggers better. And it's so important. And we talk about this here, Lynn and I do on the podcast, is having different tools in your toolbox. And it's so very important to have that. And that goes with organizations. You have to know all the different organizations out there, because not everybody's situation is going to be the same. It's going to be a different situation with what that veteran's going through, because we all go through different things. We all suffer in a different way. I mean, you guys suffered on the ground, and I had to fly over you and think, man, it sucked down there. So it's different ways to to look at things. But hey, we got to get this wrapped up. But with that, David, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate what you do. Thank you for your service in the Marines, and for what you do with Homefront Sit Rep, both with not only your podcast, but we talk about bringing people together, and what Reads Across America Radio has done in the last 2 years, giving veterans voice out there on a much wider audience than we could ever dream of having, and so very thankful to be part of them. And you are too, David. You're part of the Reads Across America Radio family. And you said, David, you play your podcast Thursdays at 11, correct?
Yes, Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, and you know what? Along with his podcast, you can find my podcast at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. And they're super easy to find. You just download the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Odyssey app, and search for Reese Across America Radio, for not only my great program, but also David's Homefront Sit Rep at Thursday at 11 p.m. And along with it, you got the Reads Across America QR code in the upper left-hand corner. You can just scan that. You can donate as little as $10. Yep, right there. Other way of bull. I'm getting tired. It's getting late here in Italy. And, you can scan that and you can donate for the wreaths. My area is Arlington, Virginia, but if they do oversell Arlington, they do ensure that the wreaths are placed on those veterans cemeteries all across the United States. And of course, we got 10th Mountain and the Veteran Mortgage, and then also PCS, the Paradise that I talked about earlier on the podcast. But with that, Lynn, why don't you tell them about the Veteran Trash Talk store?
All right, for those of you guys new to our community or haven't checked it out yet, or haven't been on the website for a while, go on www.VeteranTrashTalk.com, VeteranTrashTalk.com, and you can find our shop there, all our merch. We have our famous shirt there, Don't Be a Triggered Pansy, and then along with Cliff's shirt for his season. And we also have all of our podcasts on there, including the big one, the one on Saturdays with the boys. I forget what it's called. I'm so bad. I'm getting a brain fart.
Trash Talk Hour.
Trash Talk Hour. Trash Talk Hour with the boys. But all of our wonderful podcasts are on there. You could find ours on there. And then obviously where Cliff said on Reach Across America, where you can get all your podcasts at. That's it.
Awesome. Hey, along with that, my book is still available, The Mental Health Warrior. You can order, there you go, now you can see it. You can order that through my website. If you order it through my website, I will sign it and send it to you. But it's also available anywhere you get your books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or wherever else you buy them. Along with that, if you have a speaking event coming up and you're looking for a guest note speaker, I am booking up. Almost my month of September is pretty much booked right now with speaking events, but I do have a couple of dates available for both online and in-person speaking events. So you can go to my website at cliffordbauman.com and you can reach me through there and get me booked to be a keynote speaker at the next event coming up. With that, you guys have a great and wonderful week. And you know what? It's okay if your team lost. You got till next year. And everything will be all right. But hey, listen, we are our brothers and sisters keepers out there. So hey, let's watch out for each other. It is February now, and so the days are getting a little bit longer, so that's better. But you know what? It's still kind of a down season, so let's just look out for each other. And if you got that veteran or that friend that's been kind of quiet, let's just give them a call and see how they're doing and make sure they're doing okay. But thanks for tuning in. You guys have a great, wonderful week.
Have a great one. Thank you.
Big Earl here from Veteran Trash Talk. We're honored to be sponsored by the Veterans Mortgage Source, powered by Canopy Mortgage. The Veterans Mortgage Source is our go-to, most trusted VA lender and can handle all your VA loan purchase and refinances. If you're in the market for a new home or refinance, give Corey a call or text at the number below, 808-699-7874, and him and his team will take great care of you, answer all of your questions, and guide you to the right program best for you. Great service, great rates, but most importantly, we trust them and know they will do the right thing to every veteran and their family. Now, trust the Big Earl here. No other veteran site will do this for you.